Hello, my name is Brian of Hadson's County. I'm glad that you could join us again today for another TTRPG talk. This series discusses tabletop role-playing games and related materials, suggests ideas for some of your own games, and of course takes a look at some of my own. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the game Jovia. This epic Rome-inspired single-page game was recently created by Lore Sheeper Games. Besides being a favorite setting of mine that jumped out at me as a potentially fun time, I really wanted to discuss this game as an example of alternative dice mechanics that you might want to utilize in a game like your own. Jovia is built around a version of Tali. Tali is a Roman game of chance that utilized traditionally for knuckle bones. These were made oftentimes from the astragalus, or the talus ankle bone of a hoofed animal, oftentimes sheep. Since knuckle bones have two rounded sides and four relatively flat sides, Jovia utilizes four standard four-sided dice instead of the six-sided die that a lot of modern reproductions of Tali will often try to use. The rules of the original game of Tali are about as diverse as they are obscure to us today. Historically, gambling games or other games of chance often didn't have the rules written down in many societies unless they were also some form of divination or ritual. Outside of just gambling or playing for fun. And in a diverse place like the Roman Empire, you can imagine that there were lots of regional variations. However, we can probably surmise some of the basics of some versions of the game. For example, each side of a Tali knucklebone would often have a value of 1, 3, 4, or 6 engraved on them, which were either added together or were utilized in order to create trick hands, like you might see in a lot of card games, like sets and spreads and stuff like that. Jovia plays on this by having the player wants to have a diverse a hand as possible. Each different type of number in your hand is counted as a point, and you need to have at least 2 points in order to succeed in an action at standard difficulty. Having 3 points is rather heroic, and having 4 points is pretty much a divine outcome. A straight 1, 2, 3, 4, known as a Venus hand in Tali, is therefore the best result. A full set of one number is one of the worst possible outcomes. Some variations on Tali also had rules where a hand had to have a certain number in it in order to win, or automatically lost if it had a certain number in it without creating one of those special hands I mentioned previously. Jovia does this as well with its mishap mechanic. If a player does not roll a score that is high enough to succeed, well, you fail, but nothing else really bad happens outside of that. However, if your hand has a 4 in it, and it is not a full straight 1, 2, 3, 4, like that Venus hand I mentioned previously, you suffer a mishap or a consequence. This introduces a full range of outcome possibilities, such as a type of success with consequences outcome. Jovia does not just stop at pulling from Roman culture with just its Tali-based dice mechanics, however. I do, however, want to preface that anything else I say here might have changed between the time that I'm discussing it and you watch this video, or you get a chance to take a look at the game yourself after watching this video, because I do know that there are some this was a very recently released game, and that Lore Sheeper Games is potentially considering expanding this beyond a single page, so some of these mechanics might have altered slightly outside of the actual Tali-based dice mechanic. So, with that preface in mind, let's take a look at heritages. It was not uncommon for high-class patrician Roman families to claim mythical or divine descent in some capacity. Romulus and Remus, the founding twins, were claimed to be children of Mars, and therefore a number of Romans, individuals or families, potentially could claim descent that way. The gens Julia also claimed descent, for example, from Venus, through their alleged descendancy from Aeneas. You might know Aeneas from the epic by Ovid, where he is a mythic hero who came to Italy following the sack of Troy. Aeneas also is, according to the legends, a grandchild of Venus herself. Others claimed descent from mythic figures or royalty among the different Italic or Latin groups that were in the area, or other sort of like early allies of Rome, who in like the Middle to Late Republic did eventually become Roman citizens. For example, members of the Sabines, the Alban, and the Etruscans. And many of them, in turn, had a claim to divine descent or some mythic descent in their own cultures, although unfortunately a lot of that has been lost to us due to the Romification of Italy. As such, your epic character, since this is an epic style game, would also potentially have their own divine connection. And the game does not necessarily define if they should be a Roman deity or not. I personally feel that if it was worshipped during the period of the Roman Empire, then all bets are off. Go for it. So you want your divine heritage to be coming from an Egyptian god or a Punic god or some deity from Gaul or whatever, then that's perfectly fine. By picking a deity, any acts that you do that align with that deity's temperament and personality, and personally I would also feel probably also their portfolio, will allow you to add 1 point to your hand score once you're adding everything together. So for example, I roll 2 2s, a 3, and a 1. That gives me 3 points, but my action aligns with my heritage, then I would instead be getting 4 points. The virtue is a personality trait that your character has basically come to embody. These personal character and upholding consistent behavior, of course, were a form of social capital in Roman society. Lots of people were expected to very rigorously follow the expected Roman social norms, while other people were expected to not follow stereotypical Roman norms, like especially non-citizens or people from significantly lower social classes might be expected to embody virtues that were not virtuous. So whenever your character is acting in accordance to their virtue, whether it's positive or not, some examples of positive virtues depending upon your social class or position might be bravery, clemency, or modesty. Then you can re-roll 1 die from your hand, your pool. Finally, responsibilities will also allow you to re-roll a die in your hand. Romans, of course, took their commitments very seriously, especially when they involved family, your social role in society, and, of course, oaths that you have made, whether they be direct oaths to the state, to a person, or in the witness of a deity of some capacity or another. You would have probably been trained or had to learn the hard way the things that you need in order to keep your responsibilities, so it then makes sense that you would have a better chance of succeeding when you're trying to accomplish an action related to it. So, for example, maybe one of your responsibilities is that you are the paterfamilias, or the head of your household. So maybe you're better at doing certain tasks that are related to maintaining that household. Another one might be maybe your responsibility is that you are a bodyguard, and therefore, of course, you would in turn probably do better at actions that involve protecting people or fighting or noticing whenever there's something wrong going on, like with some suspicious stuff, things like that. Responsibilities in this game at the moment also currently function as a form of hit points. So whenever you get a mishap or consequence for an action, and in the role of play, you kind of decide that it makes sense that your character would become injured as a result of this, or have some sort of physical bad thing happen to them. You would then cross off that responsibility temporarily until either you've had some chance to potentially heal from a physical injury or regain some social standing, and therefore be able to utilize that sort of responsibility again. Lore Shaper Games creation definitely shows that there are unique resolution mechanics out there to find if you look deeply enough into sort of like the inspirational culture or historical period behind the setting and theme of your role-playing game. But obviously, you need to make sure to do this in a respectful manner. Tali is kind of more of an exception than the rule when it comes to things like this because, of course, Tali's already a game. It's already a gambling game. So whenever you're looking at this, you need to whenever you're considering, pulling a resolution mechanic, you need to make sure that it's not related potentially to any form of like divination or religious ritual or something like that, or some might be seen as a form of cultural misappropriation. So those are obviously things that you need to consider, but at the very least, it's worth looking because even if you don't utilize something from the historical time period or culture that your game is being inspired by, there might be something that might in turn inspire something else that you could create yourself, or might bring up possible connections for some of the SRDs that I might have been covering lately. That share significant commonalities with certain cultural or practices that were being used for, whether they be for games or ritual or whatever. Again, thank you very much for joining me. Links to the game itself and any information that I feel might be helpful to you about Tali will be shared in the doobly-doo down below. And have a good zone, and remember to rate your itch purchases. If you'd like to see more material on this topic, please feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel or check out the blog at hessenscounty.com.